Hello, and welcome to the Movie Mouth Film and TV Podcast, a podcast for all movie lovers. We tell it like it is, including news, reviews, and interviews on the latest and greatest celluloid treats, from the cinema screen to the VOD and beyond. This week, we are spoiler-free reviewing 2 new movies and 1 new show that can be watched right now in your home, starting with Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams' new Netflix original comedy, the Eurovision Song Contest, the Story of Fire Saga, TV stalwart Jon Stewart's second feature film directing gig, Irresistible, starring Steve Carrell, and HBO's brand new hard-hitting period crime show, Perry Mason, starring Matthew Rhys, along with some classic movies to discuss in our video store corner, listener questions, and this week's news. People need dramatic examples to shake them out of movie apathy. And we can't do that as Miles and Phil. As men, we are flesh and blood. We can be ignored. We can be destroyed. But as a podcast, we can be everlasting. As ever, I'm joined by less of a man, more of a symbol, because he's the hero Gotham deserves, but not the one it needs right now. So we'll hunt him because he can take it. Because he's not our hero. He's a silent guardian, a watchful protector, a dark knight. It's Phil.
Good evening.
Where is she?
Where is she?
That was my Batman impression. Did you like it?
Yes. How are you, Phil?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm okay.
I'm glad.
So what have you been watching this week?
This week, I have been mostly watching... Actually, I've been carrying on with Snowpiercer, which I mentioned last week. Mm-hmm. I'll watch another episode of that. I think I'm up to the 4th episode now. And I'm enjoying that. I'm starting to gain some pace, and it's kept me entertained. So that's carried on watching that. Other than that, I managed to catch up with the Ghostbusters episode of Reunited Apart. And so for those listeners that are unaware, Reunited Apart is a show on YouTube, which is presented by Josh Gad of Frozen fame, where he reunites cast and crew from classic films from what is essentially our childhoods, because I think he's not too dissimilar from our age.
Yeah.
So far he's done The Goonies, Back to the Future, Lord of the Rings, and Splash, and then Ghostbusters was the most recent one. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that was a really good, I think it's only like 33 minutes, but it's a great watch. It's great to see sort of a lot of the old cast back together and the crew that were involved, reminiscing about their experience in filming it. So yeah, that was really, really enjoyable. Also interesting to see Jason Reitman on there as well. And he's directing the new Ghostbusters film. Yeah. Obviously, because his dad, Ivan Reitman, he produced the original. So yeah, it was interesting to hear his stories about how he was basically, as they mentioned in the episode, I think he was one of the luckiest kids alive. He got to be on the set of Ghostbusters while they were filming it and remember it, which is quite amazing. Pretty jealous of that.
Awesome. I'd still have yet to see it. I'm not actually allowed to talk about what I've been watching this week because I promised last week I wouldn't talk about it. But the truth is that this show that I'm watching on Netflix is endless. It never stops. And I don't know if I actually want it to stop or not because I'm obsessed with it. And I actually went over to a friend's house this weekend here in Manhattan. We went to watch the football, have some beers, and himself and his fiance. And I ended up actually showing them Terrace House on Netflix. And I've realized that I'm a sick person now because I'm actually trying to drag other people into my new illness. But yeah, the less said about that, the better. So in terms of this week, we have quite a lot of news to get into. Before we do that, I'd like to jump to the listener questions section, where each week we ask our ever-growing followers on Instagram to send us some fun movie-related questions. The bat signal was shining non-stop this week, and we had a ton of questions flooding in, so it's difficult to answer them all, but we did choose 2. And up first is Tammy in London, who would like to know, "Hi, Phil and Miles. I'll keep this short. I'm a huge music fan. But what are your favorite movie soundtracks, Philip? Like a bit of music, don't you?
I do like a bit of music, and I like a lot of film music too. So I had a little think about this, and I think it's hard to name one that's my favorite, but up there, I'm going to name a couple. So the first one is the Back to the Future soundtrack.
Alan Silvestri.
And Alan Silvestri, yeah. So it's not only the motion picture, like the score, but also the soundtrack too. But just because, I mean, that main theme by Alan Silvestri is basically just your childhood it just brings back so many memories of watching Back to the Future when I was young, because that's just an amazing theme as it is. But then obviously on the soundtrack you've got the Huey Lewis songs, you've got The Power of Love, you've got Back in Time, which they're probably, and obviously because of Back to the Future, but I would say they're probably two of my favorite songs of all time anyway. They're just great, feel good sort of 80s songs that I love. And then you've got other great ones, the Marvin Berry and the Starlighters songs that are on there at the end.
Earth Angel.
Yeah, Earth Angel, which you should remember, but that was our first dance song. Not ours, not me and you. Me and my wife.
Not yet, Phil. I'm still holding the candle.
You're still holding that candle.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used that as our first dance song at my wedding.
What would we use as our first dance song at our wedding?
Probably the the Lord of the Rings theme, like the when they cut to Saruman.
Yes,
it's like dun, 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 that one.
Yes, dun, dun, dun,
yeah, be that.
Dun, dun, dun. What, we would dance to that at our wedding?
Yeah, because it'd be great. Slow dancing to the to that. I'd pay to see that, wouldn't you?
Well, we'll be the father of the bride will be paying. So whichever one of us is the bride, they'll be paying. Back to the point.
Yep. And then second on the list, but not second in order, the Ghostbusters soundtrack is phenomenal. Again, all of the songs that just bring me back to my childhood straight away. And no song on earth. I think, obviously you've got like Ray Parker Jr.'s Ghostbusters and the themes from it, which are great. But I think there's no song on earth that makes me want to run around in a blind panic and jump into an ectomobile more than Cleaning Up the Town. Just
for people that don't remember that song, it's right at the start of the movie when they see the library ghost and the Ghostbusters freak out and they run out of the New York Public Library down the stairs. Is that right?
Yeah, like Ray's throwing on his like overalls and
cleaning up the town with the piano.
Yeah, love it. Absolutely love that song. And then, so those two are way up there for me for sort of favourites. But there's others I could mention, sort of composers and stuff. Hans Zimmer, massively, influential on loads of the films that are part of our sort of youth growing up. So, but yeah, too many to name with him. His CV is ridiculous.
And we promised that we wouldn't mention the Michael Bay movie The Rock this week. So, I mean, I just mentioned it. I've broken 2 rules already. And I'm not actually going to pick that because I think it's an obvious choice. Did you have any?
Yeah, I thought you would say that.
Yeah, no, I actually removed it. So,
what, for Hans Zimmer?
Go ahead.
Go on. No, you go ahead.
I was going to say that I wanted to keep mine fairly brief because I could talk endlessly on this subject, and I've actually gone more for scores rather than kind of music accompaniment.
Yeah.
So I went with 3 scores that mean a lot to me. I have a real like emotional connection with them, I think, to the source material and also in isolation. The first one would be James Newton Howard's score for Lady in the Water, which was an oft-maligned M. Night Shyamalan movie that he wrote basically for his young children. as a bedtime story starring Paul Giamatti and Bryce Dallas Howard as a water sprite. It's not necessarily a great movie. I love the visuals of the movie. I love actually the story of the movie, and a lot of people hate on it. But the score is absolutely incredible from start to end, and I does not fail to give me goosebumps when I listen to it. Mm-hmm. My next choice would be Clint Mansell, who's done a lot of work. Requiem for a Dream, a lot of people know. He's done a lot of work with Darren Aronofsky, one of my favorite New York-based film directors. Again, another Marmite movie, The Fountain, starring Hugh Jackman and Rachel Weisz. Again, the score for that is it must have been a difficult one because that movie is set across 3 time periods: Spanish Conquistador, present day, and then future space bubble with a tree in it. And
yes,
and somehow he creates a score that connects with all of those elements as per the plot of the movie, and is a stunning piece of work. It's something actually that when I'm flying on airplanes, which I do quite a lot for my day job, I can put that on the plane, and it will calm me down, relax me, and also inspire me as well in other ways. It's incredible score. So Clint Mansell, the Fountain, and then final one, which is maybe more of an obvious choice, but was the French Spanish group M83, who in the UK are best known for providing the theme tune to some reality TV shows that shall remain nameless. But for me, they did the score to the Tom Cruise, Joseph Kosinski movie Oblivion, and the score to that is absolutely phenomenal as well. Pulse pounding, techno rhythms, but also strings. And definitely one that I absolutely love. And I just want to give a very special mention. Sorry, I'm hogging the airtime here. To Michael Giacchino, who is, I think very much a kind of modern day, I would say he's up there with some of the, he could be up there with some of the greats. His scores for a lot of the Pixar movies, like The Incredibles, are amazing. But there's one particular track which is called Letting Go on the soundtrack to J.J. Abrams' film Super 8, which is absolutely breathtaking. As a kind of total score, it's not one of my favorites, but that piece in particular is so stirring. And I actually went to his 50th birthday concert at the Royal Albert Hall in London, where J.J. Abrams came down and talked about his work, and he played his scores from all the different movies he's been part of. And it was really weird, actually. Frank Oz came out with the Gonzo Muppet, and they did like a kind of fun aside. It was really bizarre. Now I'm thinking about it and saying it out loud, but I saw him play the Super 8 piece, kind of sweet from that, with Letting Go being that central part, and it brought tears to my eyes. Did you have any others that you wanted to add?
No, I don't think so for now. There's plenty of great film songs out there.
We absolutely loved, I think both of us loved putting the answer to that question together. So thanks very much for that one.
Definitely.
Also, our friend at Listen to the Film podcast would like to know, if you had to watch any series of either a new Game of Thrones or the upcoming Lord of the Rings TV series, what would you choose?
I think I loved Game of Thrones, but I think it ran its course. So, and I'm a massive Lord of the Rings fan, so definitely more up for going back to Middle Earth and getting into that realm of characters again. So yeah, I'm definitely on the Lord of the Rings camp for that one.
I agree with you, and I think maybe if I was asked this question a year ago, or just over a year ago, before the last season of Game of Thrones aired, I probably would have said, without a doubt, would have said a Game of Thrones series, whatever it is, in whatever form, and I definitely wouldn't have said Lord of the Rings. But I agree with you. There was actually a Game of Thrones prequel series, which was actually cancelled after they cast and filmed the pilot episode due to substantially poor reviews. It was starring Naomi Watts and kind of English British TV regular John Sim, and that was actually kind of cast aside. They are still working on potential Game of Thrones series. I think they had 2 or 3 that they were working on in the pipeline. And of course, there is the Lord of the Rings series, which is coming out. I'm not sure if it's this year or next year now, from Spanish director J.A. Bayona, who directed The Orphanage, The Impossible, and Jurassic Park: Fallen Kingdom. And obviously, he has form with horror and with big budget movie making, not unlike Peter Jackson when he was brought in to the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. So that could be quite interesting. It's also being billed to be the most expensive TV show in history. And it's rumored that this show is going to be costing Amazon $1 billion for the first season.
It's an Amazon show.
Yeah. And it will be
how much?
1 billion, which is a Dr. Evil-like number.
Thing is, to make that kind of show possible as a TV show, like Game of Thrones completely up the ante with the special effects in TV series, especially because you always, before that, you kind of always saw a bit of a hit on the special effects budget or something like that because it was for TV. But Game of Thrones changed it really.
Yeah.
So to do a Lord of the Ring, from the original films, just look at the special effects and the stuff they pioneered in those films.
Yeah.
You can see where a lot of that budget will be going.
Apparently, Amazon actually went into a bidding war with Netflix, and they won after paying $250 million for the rights. And then, of course, they're obviously going to be paying the $750 million production fees and charges. There is some interesting news on that, and that's that Peter Jackson isn't involved directly, but he has confirmed in recent interviews that he has been involved with some script writing consultation. Okay. Obviously, himself and his wife, obviously co-wrote many of the movies. So that is interesting, and I think no one really knows that Tolkien world better to some extent than him. So safe pair of hands.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So thank you for those awesome questions. Please keep them coming in. They make this such a fun and interactive experience for us, and hopefully for you. And if you'd like to get a shout out on the show, please do find us on our Instagram account, which is @MovieMouthPodcast, or on Facebook, and send us a DM. We'll be happy to take your question and read your name out on next week's show. So, in the news this week, there's a lot to get into. I'll start. Some incredible news coming out of DC, and that's that OG Tim Burton Batman, Michael Keaton, has signed up to play Batman / Bruce Wayne in Ezra Miller's new Flash movie as part of the DCEU, which is just incredible after all these years and all these different incarnations of the character. Apparently, he's going to be playing a kind of Nick Fury type character, similar to the similar role in the Avengers, I guess, for the Justice League as a kind of mentor, which is really interesting. So I'm kind of for that. I like the idea of it, especially if they work in some kind of alternate timeline, which I think they're doing at Marvel right now as well.
Yeah.
With kind of different dimensions and that kind of thing. But anything that brings Michael Keaton back on screen for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Should be awesome. Amazon Prime series The Boys is coming back, which of course is the Carl Urban casted show. That season 2 launches on September 4th. I really enjoyed that. We were kind of spoilt with that kind of content last year with the Umbrella Academy on Netflix and The Boys itself. But that kind of alternate world where superheroes are kind of this dark bent on protecting us, but also being extremely irresponsible with their superpowers. I really enjoyed some really dark stuff in that. So if anyone hasn't seen The Boys on Amazon Prime, I highly recommend it. It's balls to the wall. It's really all the way out there, but really good. I'm really looking forward to season 2. Pirates of the Caribbean. So this is a bit of a snooze fest when you start talking about it. But what's really exciting is that Margot Robbie is now been attached to star in a new Pirates of the Caribbean movie, which I don't think really plays into the Johnny Depp Jack Sparrow kind of role. So, which
Right.
I think is amazing casting, because she's becoming such a powerful character actor, almost in the vein of Johnny Depp,
Yeah.
or in recent years Helena Bonham Carter. So
Yeah.
I think it's a really smart move. I would genuinely be excited about this. I
Yeah,
think
me too.
yeah, really exciting. And
What would it be, like number 6 in the Pirates
it would
world?
be, yes, it would be. So we are fit. Yeah, we're 5 in now. The first 3 were interesting. Then I think the fourth one was pretty bad. The fifth one I never actually saw, to be
I haven't
honest.
seen the last one.
It had essentially jumped the shark, pun intended, by that point. So I think some kind of reboot with Margot Robbie in the lead, who I think is just incredible, especially in her role as Harley Quinn, which I think she's incredible in that, very watchable. In fact, this movie is actually being written by the same person who wrote the last Birds of Prey movie starring her. So she's got form there. So I think that's really exciting. In some bad news, I guess, Tenet, the new Christopher Nolan film, has been pushed back by another month. Obviously, it was supposed to be out in July. It's now been delayed until August 12th, 2020. So it is still coming. They haven't pushed it all the way back. It looks like movie theaters are beginning to open, but I'm hopeful that we're going to see that one in August, because I can't wait for it.
Yeah. In delay news, it's even worse news because it's even longer. Well, depending on how you look about this film, but I mentioned it earlier, but Ghostbusters Afterlife has now been delayed until the 5th of March next year.
No!
It was meant to be this summer. So
what did you do, Ray?
What did you do?
It's coronavirus.
Yeah, so that's a shame. But from what you said on the Reunited Apart that we mentioned earlier, it's given him time to sort of have a fresh look at it and sort of recut it and really, really make it how he wants. So maybe it's a good thing.
That's exciting.
Another bit of news I saw an interesting article about Christopher Nolan films being played in the Fortnite video game this week to keep people entertained during the coronavirus. So yeah, within that game, I don't play it, but there's screens on a hill on there, and they've been, I think it varied across countries. So America got Inception and The Dark Knight, I think, at different times, and the UK got The Prestige.
Wow.
And yeah, so you could basically chill out, and it was using the big screen technology, in which if anyone's into VR, they might know what big screen is. It's an app where you can basically go into a virtual cinema, and I think they've got a deal with Paramount, so you can buy tickets to shows in there and watch films in VR in a really great sort of VR cinema setting, on a massive screen. So yeah, I thought that was quite an interesting link up, really. I mean,
wow, that is. It's great cross promotional, especially for the new movie coming out. Warner Brothers probably.
Well, with Tenet, they've actually been at the start of every hour in Fortnite. This is what I read, that they've been playing the trailer for Tenet as well in Fortnite.
Wow.
It's just a whole new way of advertising, isn't it? That we wouldn't have thought possible a few years ago.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
I know they had the hip hop star Travis Scott did a full concert in Fortnite a few months ago, which again, groundbreaking visuals and just incredible ways for new media. And obviously, you mentioned VR, and we've been having a lot of fun with a lot of those movie related apps, content apps on the on the VR platform. In sad news, we learned this week about the passing of Joel Schumacher, the director of such incredible movies as Falling Down, The Lost Boys, St. Elmo's Fire, Flatliners, Phone Booth, Tigerland, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin. He died aged 80 in New York City this week, related to cancer. Obviously, for me, a great director. I love Falling Down in particular. Is
great film,
a big part of my growing up. Yeah, and I think The Lost Boys we've talked about in recent weeks on the podcast. Some of the most incredible scenes and memorable things to remember from that movie.
Yeah.
St. Elmo's Fire, I absolutely love. So a real loss, and I think his career was definitely marred by the reaction to. I think the Batman movies that he directed. I think, to be honest, Batman Forever is actually not a bad movie,
No.
and it certainly grossed more than Batman Returns.
Yeah.
Probably due to Jim Carrey also joining that. But I think certainly marred by Batman and Robin with George Clooney, which I think it goes without saying it's not a great film. It had its problems with the script and in production, and a lot of people on social media, pouring out very good kind of gestures towards him now. Even if for the last few years, I think a lot of people were kind of writing them off due to that movie. So a real shame, and obviously, a real loss for the movie industry.
Yeah. I heard read a really nice but sort of depressing quote which said about Joel Schumacher, and it said the architects of our youth are gradually leaving us, which I thought was a nice thing to say, but also a little bit depressing as well.
Someone better wrap Steven Spielberg in cotton wool right now.
Put him into cryogenics.
Just freeze him right now so that we can thaw him out in the future like Walt Disney's brain. But really, really sad news, and obviously very sad to hear it. We don't like to see any of our heroes here pass away, and Joel Schumacher, who died this week, aged 80. So, Phil, any trailers for any upcoming movies that caught your eye this week?
Yes. So, I watched the trailer for Waiting for the Barbarians, which is the new Johnny Depp film. And this comes out on August the 7th. And it stars Johnny Depp, Mark Rylance is the lead, and Robert Pattinson. And Mark Rylance plays a magistrate of a remote settlement that exists sort of on the frontier of the Empire. And it's about their peaceful existence being disturbed when the Empire sends their version of the special forces, basically called the Third Bureau, which is led by Johnny Depp's character, Colonel Joel, I don't know how you pronounce that, and his officer Mandel, which is played by Robert Pattinson. And this is
Is this a sci-fi, can I ask?
It's not a sci-fi in any way, shape, or form. Basically, they hear that the barbarians, who are sort of the indigenous people that live outside of the settlement, might be preparing to attack the town.
Right. So this is the British Empire you're talking about here.
Yeah.
In what, Pacific Islands or?
I think, I don't know actually. from the trailer, it doesn't really.
No, I mean, it sounds pretty interesting. I'd like to look it up.
Yeah, I mean, so it seems interesting, and I think the main theme of it is that Johnny Depp plays the colonel and the officer, and that they're bad people, is the way it's put across. And I think the main theme of the film is that Mark Rylance, as the magistrate, starts to question his loyalty to the Empire and colonialism. So it looks interesting though. It looks like it could have some really good performances. And weirdly, Johnny Depp's wearing the craziest looking pair of sunglasses that I think probably only he could pull off in the trailer. So it's worth checking out just for that.
Is it kind of madcap Johnny Depp, out there, balls to the wall, full on gonzo backcountry, or
no?
Is it a more restrained Johnny Depp?
Definitely,
it's been a while.
Yeah, it definitely looks much more restrained. Yeah, and interesting to see him play a more evil character.
I can't be the only one that's a little bit kind of tired of the shtick, the Tim Burton-esque, shtick. These kind of out there, mad-eyed, wavy-haired characters.
Yeah,
it's kind of wearing a bit thin. I'd like to really see what he can do. Going back to some of those roles, like What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and a more serious tone to his acting, I would really like to see. I really liked him in the Rum Diaries, which a lot of people don't really talk about.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, from the same director as With Nail and I, which I really enjoyed for some reason. It was a bit more understated, but that sounds great to me. It sounds right up my alley, so I'm definitely going to check out that trailer.
Yeah, it looks like it could have some really, really strong performances in it, I think.
I saw the trailer for Greenland, or Greenland, I don't know, starring Gerard Butler. It's from the director of the last Has Fallen movie, which was Angel Has Fallen.
Yeah.
And this is about a meteorite threatening an end-of-life scenario on Earth. From the look of it, I was hoping for a mix of, that series' main character, the wonderfully named Mike Banning, squaring off against a meteor and ultimately offering it to play a game of fuck off before announcing, "You go first." But it looks like we'll have to wait to see Gerard Butler punching an asteroid this time, as the tone's a little bit more darker, a bit more muted and serious. Although it does look interesting. It looks like some really nice visual effects and things like that. I like Gerard Butler. I think he's very, very watchable.
Yeah, I do.
So that's one that's coming out. It says later this year. But other than that, it wasn't a great week for trailers. It was a pretty quiet week.
Yeah.
All in. This week we have 3 exciting new reviews, starting with Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga. Phil sat down to watch this one today. What did you make of it?
So, this was an entertaining beast. So this is the new Netflix film. Came out today. It's directed by David Dobkin, and he's known for Shanghai Nights, Wedding Crashers, and he produced R.I.P.D. as well. It stars Will Ferrell, Rachel McAdams, Dan Stevens, and Pierce Brosnan makes a good appearance as well. So Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams play Icelandic singers Lars and Sigrid of Fire Saga, as they are known. And basically, they're given the opportunity to represent Iceland in the Eurovision Song Contest. I'll start by saying that this is a silly film, a very silly film, but it's one I've been looking forward to since I saw. I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago, actually, when they released the music video that accompanies the film as a sort of trailer and teaser for the film. And as soon as I saw that, I wanted to see it. So, yeah, but it is silly. So, I mean, I know Eurovision can be a bit Marmite for some people. You're either going to love it or hate it. I've always genuinely looked forward to it, and it's not because I like the endless Euro pop music. It's terrible, but it's because I find it such a fascinatingly bizarre spectacle to watch.
I think we should just pause for a second, just to maybe bring into some of our listeners who aren't from Europe, especially here in the US. You'll have no idea what Eurovision is. So Eurovision is an annual song contest where countries compete with a chosen song within Europe, and actually further afield now. We have Australia and Israel a part of it. And every country submits a song it's a brand new written song with an artist, and everybody competes. It's not like the X Factor. It's not, judging people singing. It's basically, which song really captures the spirit of the festival of Eurovision that year. And then the countries actually have a phone-based vote where everyone calls in and you vote, and then the winner is picked from all of those different countries. It's super camp, over the top, brash, super Euro with crazy costumes and pyrotechnics and all kinds of different dance moves. But it's a lot of fun, and everyone in Europe kind of pretends to hate it a little bit, but secretly everyone kind of loves it.
Yeah, they'll definitely watch it if they're on. I think if you're a Eurovision fan, you're probably going to love it. The songs are hilarious and very Eurovision-esque, and it's quite fun. I thought it was quite fun to see Eurovision itself as the brand laughing at itself basically, and sort of taking the piss out of itself, because they know the kind of audience that they get and the reputation that the competition's got. So yeah, I thought that was quite good. With regards to performances, so with Will Ferrell, I'm a big fan of Will Ferrell. I think he's honestly one of the best comic actors around for the last few years. I love him. I think he's brilliant. He's had a lot of hit and misses. Does a lot of middle of the road comedies, and then a lot better ones. And he's
Daddy's Home.
Yeah, all those ones, and
probably Get Hard.
Yeah. And then he does some serious stuff as well. And I think with his performance, it's genuinely really good. I think there's a few hits and misses with lines and jokes, not just from him, from a lot of people, but it suits the role really well, and he does a pretty convincing job. Rachel McAdams, who plays his singing partner, she's great in it as well.
Not his sister.
Not his sister. They don't think. She's really good in it. I think she had a really strong performance. But I think what I found annoying is that her whole subplot revolves around her sort of longing for Lars, Will Ferrell's character, and hoping that one day they'll get together. Whereas actually he's a bit of a dick to her, especially. So like, why bother? Like, I thought it was just a bit of a I don't know, it's a bit of an odd subplot, really. Pierce Brosnan playing Lars's dad. I think he was a really welcome addition to the film. He was great in it.
What a beard! His beard should have been giving a guest starring billing on the credits.
I mean, I'm not going to, but I hope I look that good when I'm his age.
I wish I looked that good at my age.
Yeah, actually, that's probably a better way to put it. I did find his Icelandic accent more off-putting than anyone else's in it, though, because he just sounded Welsh.
Lars, you've really disappointed me.
Yeah, it's what
don't go to the Eurovision Song Contest, Lars.
That's exactly what he sounded like. Yeah, it was a bit, but other than that, he was great in it. I think my favourite performance, though, in terms of both acting and the onstage song that he performs, one I'll probably say steals the show, is by Dan Stevens, and he plays the completely over the top but oddly very believable in the world of Eurovision Russian entrant of Alexander Lemtov, and his song performance is just hilarious. I think it's one of the best things in the film.
He's having a lot of fun. Huh?
Yeah, definitely. And then the last performance I have to give an honourable mention to is the unnecessarily angry local in the village in Iceland that literally shouts every line he's got, and I love him. I won't spoil it by saying what he shouts, but
something to do with Yaya Ding Dong, I believe.
Yeah. So then, with regards to the runtime, I think it was just over 2 hours, this film, and I think it dragged a little bit. I think it went on, a little bit longer than it should have done, and you sort of find yourself with towards the last bit. It's the will he,
start
won't
of the third
he?
act.
Yeah, it's the will he, won't he, or will she, won't she moments, and they're a bit too drawn out. You sort of just want it to get back to just more of the Eurovision stuff. You want to hear more of the terrible but awesome songs, and it actually turns to be much more of like a serious emotional sort of end, doesn't it, to it? But so I think it's a little bit long, but overall I think it's a much needed laugh with the current state of the world, and I think it should keep Eurovision fans happy, considering the contest being cancelled this year.
It was more of a love letter, I thought, than mocking it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I felt like it was more done with love than ripping it apart.
Yeah. Oh no, I'd say so.
But in a way that wasn't like saccharine or,
No, it was. I thought it was great. I thought it was exactly what was needed. So I'd say, in summary, to true Eurovision form, it's maybe not a nil point, but certainly not a 12 point either. But I recommend it.
I also recommend it, and I loved it as well. especially as you say, a lot of fun they were having with their Icelandic accents, which could be offensive to Icelanders. It could not. I don't know. But the pronunciation of Seaman and Garfunkel in particular had me rolling on the floor in tears. But also that was really interesting is that Will Ferrell was actually singing in this.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
So he actually performed that. Rachel McAdams was also performing, although I think a lot of her singing was kind of mapped with a Swedish singer to kind of, I guess, cover some of the elements because her singing parts were extensive by comparison to Will Ferrell's. But it's really interesting, the story behind this, actually. Did you know about how this movie came to be?
No, I know that Will Ferrell went to watch you. I know he's quite a big fan of it, and he wrote it, didn't he? Well, he's one of the writers.
So basically, so Will Ferrell's wife is Swedish.
Right.
And he had no idea what Eurovision Song Contest was, obviously being an American. He once watched it with his wife, and then it became like a thing that they would do every year, like you kind of do in Europe. And then he became genuinely interested into it. He attended the finale in Copenhagen about 5 or 6 years ago. And then he decided to write and produce a movie. So it comes from an actual place of love for the song contest. Yeah. So kind of fun, a little aside. Cool to see someone in Hollywood, making that step.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So a recommendation then?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very exciting. You can check that one out on Netflix now. It's streaming everywhere as of today, which is Friday, June 26th. So up next, I watched the Daily Show host and writer Jon Stewart's second directing gig, which is Irresistible. This follows on after the less comedic but ultimately political Rosewater, which was his directing debut. It's this movie, Irresistible, sees Steve Carrell and Rose Byrne as dueling political strategists relocating to a small town that appears to be on its last legs. And they move there to manage the mayoral campaigns of two local residents after a farmer, played by the always excellent Chris Cooper, sees his pro-immigration speech go viral on social media. This is breathy, well-cast, includes real food for thought about the financial backing of US political campaigns. Steve Carell's on great form here, as you would expect. Although his character lacks a little depth, we never really see what makes him tick. But the MVPs here are played by the aforementioned Chris Cooper, who's really breezy. He's a retired colonel turned farmer who's moving into an alien political world, which is really fun. Mackenzie Davis of Black Mirror's finest moment, San Junipero, TV's Halt and Catch Fire, and she was probably the best thing in the last Terminator movie, kicking ass as the killing machine, Grace. She adds a lot to this movie. But standout was Rose Byrne's foil to Steve Carell's Gary, his kind of rival. Watching these two have these foul-mouthed exchanges one after the other was the highlight for me. And it left me wanting to see more of that in the movie rather than the finished product that we had on display. Yeah. It kind of seemed like it was from another movie, but she was incredible in this, and those scenes were so much fun. Some fun moments in this as well, such as a fake credit roll, and also with Hollywood's history of older actors being paired up in romantic relationships with substantially younger female actors. There was an old man, young woman romance that was looking ill-advised, but it was really smartly kind of rescued in a way that I haven't seen before, almost highlighting Hollywood's role in toxic masculinity and male chauvinism. So this is not a laugh-out-loud comedy by any stretch. I didn't find this as preachy, though, and sometimes politically charged movies can be a little over the top and preachy. Until actually during the credits where there were some real world interviews. This is a $20 home rental here in the States. It was supposed to come out in movie theaters. I probably would have paid to see it in theaters because I really enjoyed the trailer before Christmas, I think, when it first came out. However, it might not be everyone's cup of tea. So I'd recommend it if you're a Steve Carell completist, if you're interested in current politics, or if you're wondering about what's really happening behind those scathing and chest-beating political commercials that enrage and inspire us all to put that little black X on the voting ballot. So I would personally recommend this film. I don't think it's going to be for everybody, but take from that what you will. In my final review this week, so I was pretty busy on the review side. I sat down to watch Perry Mason, episode 1. Bear in mind, so this is based on the actual books where the character actually originated. It acts as more of a prequel to the 1950s US TV series starring Raymond Burr. It's produced by Robert Downey Jr. and his wife Susan, interestingly, and has so far debuted to the largest HBO opening for a new show since the excellent Sharp Objects in 2018. Which is, by the way, Sharp Objects. If you haven't seen it, or anyone out there that hasn't seen that, you need to watch that immediately. It's incredible. So this stars Matthew Rhys of the Americans fame. And he stars as the kind of dogged, beat down, worn out suit wearing, stained mustard tie wearing private detective in a time of immense corruption in the Los Angeles Police Department. Post World War I, pre World War II, he's hired to investigate the cases that the police can't be trusted with, or, as in the rather comical opening scene, a blackmail plot to capture illicit pictures of a silent movie era oaf. This has a amazing cast, including John Lithgow, T-1000 himself, Robert Patrick, and Shea Wiggum, who, for me, is a character actor who always adds about 25% to any movie or show that I'm watching. Matthew Rhys plays Mason with a real lived-in emptiness. He's a 40-something man, not so much at the crossroads of middle age, but on an endless roundabout to self-destruction. He's a lost soul, expressionless during a very funny lovemaking scene, and then stony-faced during a packed movie theater where all the audience are in hysterical fits of laughter except him. So it's a surprise then that somehow, with all of this kind of lack of emotion and darkness, he somehow manages to bring the kind of cliched damaged hero, but also play the part with a masterful ease and warmth. And despite the bleak and sometimes gory scenes on display, there are also laughs, which make this more than just a hard-hitting and unrelenting, nasty film noir pastiche, as it may appear from the outside. Despite a talented ensemble, so far in episode 1, the camera barely leaves Perry Mason's side. And with sparse dialogue from our hero, we somehow manage to absorb the warmth of the character via osmosis through the screen. There are clues to where his soul may have been lost, perhaps as an infantry soldier in a war, or due to a failed marriage or absence of being a reliable father to his child. But those secrets appear to be 2 or 3 steps ahead, and not unlike Don Draper in Mad Men, the plot is simply a vessel to take us to our real destination, which is unlocking the title character's backstory as a weekly puzzle. But let's hope, unlike Mad Men, for no musical fantasy scenes in this series, please. The case in question is an unrelentingly bleak and gory affair, and some viewers may balk at 2 scenes of real visceral unpleasantness, so discretion is advised. For me, there was little diversity so far in the casting, but the time period in which this is set may be the key reason. I'd like to see more screen time for the female contingent on the cast. But already they are setting up Juliet Rylance, interestingly played by Mark Rylance's stepdaughter, having mentioned him earlier on the podcast, as a sassy and strong female character, along with Orphan Black's Tatiana Maslany, who interestingly once smiled at me before a performance of Network on Broadway that she was starring in. So ever since then, I've been really interested in her career. So looking forward to seeing her character have more screen time. But it appears that we will further down the line. So far, this sets up to be a really slick, well-produced, written and acted show. And although not essential, episode 1 is highly recommended and available on HBO Go here in the US and wherever you find your HBO content around the world. So tune into that one.
Yeah, I'd like to start that. I think it looks like it could be really good. I've only seen sort of the trailers for it at the moment, but it looks visually very good as well. I like the way it looks.
Yeah.
They do a good job, HBO, generally, don't they, on their production?
They've spared no expense on this, really. I mean, you're in that time period.
Yeah.
More so than, some other kind of reference points like maybe Miller's Crossing or Boardwalk Empire or Road to Perdition. You're in that kind of era. And it looks great. I hope it continues to be good. But standout for me is Matthew Rhys, considering he doesn't have much to say or really do.
Yeah.
And he's so closed and dark. Somehow is a really warm and enveloping character. And I really do recommend it.
Sounds good.
Okay, so in this week's Video Store Corner, a slight change to our regular programming. In the light of the end of the world saga that we've all been living in for these last 3 to 4 months, this week we're switching it up and we're going to list our top 5 favorite apocalyptic movies, both mid and post-apocalyptic in this case, and with a slight asterisk, which is neither Phil or I have shared our list with each other.
We haven't.
So we're going to read these out one at a time, and we will unwrap them as if they are gifts asunder our apocalyptic Christmas tree.
Apocalyptic gift for you. Okay, I'll go first. So, in no particular order, mine are, I will say. So I've got the 5, but they're not in any particular order of favoritism. So the first one is 28 Days Later, which is the 2002 Danny Boyle directed classic. Stars Cillian Murphy, Naomi Harris, and Christopher Eccleston. And it's about a group of misguided animal rights activists that free a caged chimp infected with the rage virus from a research lab. And London bike courier Jim, who was played by Cillian Murphy, wakes up from a coma a month after, and he finds out the city of London, this is because it's where it's set, has been deserted. So then he's on the run from lots of very terrifying, horrifically fast zombies, which I think is one of the main things that makes this film even more tense, is that how horrifically fast the zombies are. Because normally you're used to those shambling type zombies. And yeah, this is completely different. So yeah, it's about his struggle trying to survive, hooking up with a group of survivors, one of which is Selena, who's played by Naomi Harris, and a cab driver who's played by Brendan Gleeson. And yeah, it's just a great film. And I think it's, especially in the scenes that are in it, that they managed to get. And I think it was a mixture. They might have filmed very, very early in the morning, but also got parts of the city of London shut down. And they managed to get some absolutely amazing and really eerie shots of deserted London, just areas that you are so used to seeing, packed with people and traffic. And so yeah, that was a real standout point for that one for me.
Quite apt for today as well, where you can probably, well, as of a few months ago, could have got similar shots yourself on your phone
probably
walking
could,
around
yeah.
London.
Yeah, so that's mine.
That's a great choice.
Yeah.
Didn't think much of the sequel, to be honest.
No, I didn't either. Didn't like the sequel very much.
So for me, going straight in here in no particular order, would be the modern classic 2015's Mad Max Fury Road.
Ooh.
Which is just an incredible movie, directed by George Miller, who of course directed the original trilogy. This time starring Tom Hardy in the Max Rokitansky role, and Charlize Theron as Imperator Furiosa, who's brilliant in this, as is Nicholas Hoult as Nux. And this movie is just an absolute thrill ride. It sounds like a cliche. I remember seeing it in an IMAX theater in 2015. To be honest, I haven't actually seen it since. I bought it on 3D Blu-ray. I've meant to watch it again, but I'm actually a little bit scared because I enjoyed it so much. I think it's such a perfect movie that I couldn't bear to watch it again and pick holes in it.
I'm about to shock you, Miles, because I've not actually seen it.
Go ahead. Okay. If the listeners can hear me, I'm actually threatening Phil.
He is. He's visually threatening me. I can see him, and he's. I do want to see it. I really want to see it.
World, I'd be chasing you across the desert in a car with skulls and
spikes on it,
all kinds of things on it.
Yeah. That'd be fair.
You haven't seen it, you need to see it. The petition starts here. But an absolutely perfect movie. It picked up a ton of awards, Oscar nominations, and so on. And was absolutely right to do so. You simply need to see it.
Right. I'm going to go on to my second. Escape from New York, 1981, the classic, directed by John Carpenter, starring Kurt Russell.
As Snake
Plissken. So, plot being what happens when the President of the United States is taken hostage in New York City years after the island of Manhattan is turned into a massive maximum security prison colony.
Sean Connery.
Colony. You send in Snake Plissken, of course. So, yeah, this is a classic. It's just it's quite a crazy film. He basically has to enter the colony, which is the city of New York, and fight his way to the president through all of these ruffians that are filling the city. But I think it was really well done. I think it had some really good scenes and some low budget but okay special effects for the time. I thought I love this film. I don't like the sequels at all, but Escape from New York I really liked.
Yeah, I think it's a great movie as well. And I think, as you say, around the budget, it must have been impossible to make this movie on a shoestring budget because of basically the visual effects that it calls for and the setting and the sets and that kind of thing. I've actually felt a bit like Snake Plissken myself these last few months, rolling around New York. But actually, really interesting point about that is that for you video game fans out there, Hideo Kojima, who created the Metal Gear Solid franchise, originally based Solid Snake on Snake Plissken and Kurt Russell's performance with the voice acting as well.
Hence the eye patch too.
Exactly, hence the eye patch. So, if you're a fan of the Metal Gear Solid games, maybe you should go back and check out Escape from New York. Great choice, Phil. My next one is one I've kind of mentioned today, actually, and this is a film that I just love. It's Joseph Kosinski's Oblivion, and this stars Tom Cruise and Andrea Riseborough, who have what appears to be a quote-unquote effective team being left alone on Earth after a huge war where all of Earth's inhabitants have left. Tom Cruise and Andrea Riseborough are left there to harvest water and take care of the drones that are keeping the scavenger aliens that have destroyed the planet from disrupting the machinery put there to help. So I don't know if a lot of people like this movie or not. I saw this again in the theater. It blew my mind. The effects are amazing. Tom Cruise's bubble ship when he's flying around in this kind of, Apple designed almost, kind of hover car type thing. The score is absolutely incredible, as I mentioned, by M83 earlier. I just love it. The cinematography in this makes it for me, by the Chilean director of photography, Claudio Miranda, who won the Oscar for Life of Pi. He was nominated for cinematography for Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and he really cut his teeth on a lot of the kind of Fincher movies through the 90s, like Fight Club, Seven, as he was in different roles and gaffer roles and that kind of thing. But as soon as I see he's the cinematographer attached to any movie or project, I'm in, because he uses this symmetry. And interestingly, a lot of this movie was filmed in Iceland, talking about Iceland. In a different situation.
A bit different.
But he uses that landscape to take up most of the frame. And this film just looks and sounds gorgeous. The script maybe has its issues. But if you like sci-fi, post-apocalyptic, if you can stomach Tom Cruise, absolutely amazing. And the same team, so cinematographer, director, and of course Tom Cruise himself are all teaming up in the new Top Gun Maverick movie, which is coming very soon. And if the flight scenes are anything to be believed like they are here in Oblivion, it should be an amazing movie to watch.
Brilliant. So next on my list, I'm waiting for you to shout "snap." When this is exciting, isn't it? I like this.
I reckon there's going to be one.
You reckon?
I reckon there's going to be
one. I don't know.
Yeah, and I will shout "snap."
Okay, all right. 12 Monkeys. Oh, no snap. So
that's a great choice.
1995, directed by Terry Gilliam, starring Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt. So it's probably one of the weirder films on this list. So it stars Bruce Willis as James Cole, a futuristic prisoner who's sent back to 1996. To prevent the release of a deadly virus that wiped out much of civilization. When he's sent back to the wrong time period, he's mistaken for a lunatic and taken to a mental hospital, where he meets Jeffrey Goins, who's portrayed by Brad Pitt. I love this film. I think it's a 90s classic. It's got such good imagery in it. Just great cinematography from Gilliam.
Yeah.
And I think any fan of time travel and dystopian future will love it.
I feel like this is a movie that's almost been forgotten. Like, people don't talk about this anymore.
Yeah.
It was huge in the 90s. I remember massive, when it came out.
Yeah, it was. But I love it. I saw it quite recently, actually. They were showing it on TV, and I watched it. Loved it.
This might surprise you, but considering my memories of The Lost Boys, which we discussed on a previous podcast, the only thing that reminds me of that movie, in this case, it's Brad Pitt it's Bruce Willis getting hosed down and scrubbed butt naked.
Yeah, he does.
That's the only scene I remember about this movie. That's the only thing.
Really? I think.
Yeah, I need to talk to someone. I need a therapist.
You need to watch it again.
Well, are you not my therapist? Is that not what this
I'm
is?
Sorry. No.
I'm just here to talk about the movie scenes that affected me as a child. It explains so much to me now.
Butt. Be scrubbed. I thought Brad Pitt was great in it because he plays that just crazy lunatic guy, and he's doing the whole rolling eyes, like tapping his head all the time, and he does it really well. He's great.
Fucking excellent choice. So my choice is slightly more miserable. It's John Hillcoat's The Road, which is based on the book of the same name, starring Viggo Mortensen and a young Cody Smith-McPhee as a father and son who are wandering through the post-apocalyptic American wasteland to reach the sea. So firstly, I read the book years ago. Absolutely loved the book. Incredible. This movie, it's the perfect recreation of that book. Heartbreaking, real, visceral, superbly acted. I remember me and my partner at the time bawling our eyes out after we watched it together. It's a real roller coaster of a movie. If you like things a little bit less on the sci-fi and the shiny side, then I really recommend The Road. Probably again the kind of movie you don't want to watch, on a sunny day, but definitely recommended.
Yeah, it's a good film. It's really good, and Mortensen's amazing in it as well. But I think he's pretty good in everything he's in.
Mm-hmm.
So still no snap.
It's coming. I guarantee it. I know it is.
You reckon? I don't think it is. I don't think it is now. I don't think you're going to have any of the ones that I'm
going to shout snap when you say it.
Okay. Next. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Ooh. 2014.
Directed by Matt Reeves. Starring Gary Oldman and Andy Serkis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this one's set 10 years after the simian flu wiped out most of the world's human population. And Andy Serkis plays the ape tribe leader Caesar in one of his amazing motion captured performances. Who we know he is the master of that art. in a world where he's forced to coexist with Gary Oldman's Dreyfus, and it's just about both species fighting for survival. And it's got some absolutely phenomenal special effects. I think a lot, like all of those newer Planet of the Apes films do. I think they're fantastic looking films. And I think it's well worth a watch. That it's got, again, strong performances, and I really like that franchise.
This opening sequence in this movie, where they are the two kind of warring tribes in the woods, in the redwood forest, it looks like in California, is filmed so well. I remember seeing that the first time, and that opening scene is so absorbing and incredible. That wet rainforest, incredible. Also, as well, stars Kerry Russell, who, interestingly, is the co-lead of the Americans TV show starring Matthew Rhys, who's now in Perry Mason. And they actually were husband and wife in that. They actually got married.
Yep.
So just an interesting callback to something that we discussed earlier. Yeah. I don't want to keep name dropping, but I did actually meet her outside of a production she was in on Broadway. But no, an excellent choice. That surprises me, actually. I didn't know you liked that film so
I
much.
love those, yeah.
What a great choice.
Come on. We've got one left each, haven't we?
So, well, I know this isn't going to be a snap.
Yeah,
I've got two. You've got one.
Oh yeah.
So I know this isn't going to be a snap.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I know you haven't seen it, and our listeners are going to be appalled.
Oh God, they might as well.
This is the highest-grossing movie of all time. Avengers: Endgame. So, Post-Apocalyptic. You're probably thinking, as someone that hasn't seen it, how?
No spoilers, please. I've somehow managed to not have this spoiled. Even I'm sorry, listeners.
I'm not going to give you spoilers. I'm not going to give you spoilers. But what's funny is that I've seen this. Pretty much everyone that's listening to this has seen it, and you
I think
haven't.
The whole world,
so when I say these,
apart from me, has seen this film.
Yeah, well, this is why it's the highest-grossing movie. Everyone apart from you has seen it. So I'm going to say things that don't spoil it, but will hopefully lead a little breadcrumb trail to you. And everyone at home, the petition starts now to get Phil to watch this movie and Avengers Infinity War, which he also hasn't seen. So how can I sum up Avengers Endgame? Wow. I saw this 3 times in theaters. It has blown my mind every time I've seen it. The body count from Infinity War. The 5 years later. The opening scene to Portals to I Love You 3000. I'm not crying, you're crying. You need to see this movie, and you need to see Avengers Infinity War, and we need to get this on an episode of the podcast where we actually talk about it, because this movie fucking blew me away from start to finish.
Yeah.
For me, it's a perfect...
We definitely need to do that. As if we've got any listeners left after I've just admitted I've not watched the...
To be honest, I'm thinking about leaving the podcast as well.
Don't, because it'll just be me left just watching films about Eurovision and talking about films I've not seen.
Well, we talked about Alan Silvestri earlier with the Back to the Future score. He does the score here. The work he does here is incredible.
Right.
Is incredible. How this didn't win an Oscar, I don't know. But the work here is absolutely amazing. And when I saw this in the theatre, there was a moment in there where I saw people physically levitate above the seats and scream with sheer joy, with tears of joy. All of your fantasies come alive. I'm not a huge comic book fan or nerd. I've always loved graphic novels and dipping in and out of them. But where this takes things is just next level filmmaking and absolutely incredible. And, it is post-apocalyptic. I can't recommend it enough.
I shall watch it, I promise.
Are we going to get a snap?
You're not. I don't think you'll think this this should be on the list. Dread. Not the shit 1992 slice of own.
You're talking about Dread 3D?
Yeah.
With Carl
Urban, yeah. 2012, directed by Pete Travis. So, yeah, it's not the 1992 one, which was awful. And I I don't know why, but I gave that another chance recently, the 92 one, and it doesn't need it. It's terrible.
With Rob Schneider and Sylvester Stallone.
It's so terrible. And I love Stallone, but that should not have been made. So yeah, this is the 2012 adaptation starring Carl Urban. So he's the lawman bringing justice in the post-apocalyptic landscape of the collapsing mega city one.
Oh yeah,
which I just love the name of that. And yeah, this is adapted from the Judge Dredd comics, the classic comics, and paints a picture of a future where police have the power to play judge, jury, and executioner. And I've always loved that about the Dredd. I think it's such an interesting idea. I've read, I think it's only like one of the books I've read, but I just really like the premise of the Dredd sort of universe and Mega City One and everything. Yeah, and this also has Lena Headey in it. Headey, not
Cersei
Lannister. And she plays a drug lord, Marmar, which is a pretty bad character name, I think. Yeah, and it's just it's really violent, but it's great. I think it's a great film. I remember seeing it in 3D. I think it's one of the first films that, I know it's died a bit of a death. I didn't see it at the cinema, but I saw it on 3D Blu-ray. Yeah. So I know home 3D stuff sort of died a bit of a death, really, but it looked great, and it's just got some really cool action sequences in it, and a load of the slow motion stuff, But I loved it. I thought it was a great film.
That's the drug, isn't it? They take
the drug and it makes everything go slow motion, and the bullets go. Yeah, it's all bullet time and everything, but it's really stylish. It's a really stylish
soundtrack as well. Holy hell, that soundtrack is amazing. It's like being punched in the face and kicked in the ass at the same time.
And Carl Urban's awesome in it as well. Plays the grumpy Dredd very well.
Yeah, he really does. I know he was petitioning for a sequel as well, but I don't think, unfortunately, it made that much money. But
I was looking at that last year because everyone wants it. Everyone wants it. But, maybe it shouldn't have.
It's whether people actually pay for it. That's the problem these days, sadly. Well, I think much like you, I'm not sure whether this is post-apocalyptic. I think it is, because there are scenes of the apocalypse and there is a post-apocalyptic climax. So, Independence Day. Everything about it.
Yeah.
Welcome to Earth. Whooping E.T.'s ass. President Thomas J. Whitmore's speech. We will not go quietly into the night. Being a kid growing up in the UK and seeing all these US landmarks that looked real being destroyed blew my mind. And
practical effects, though.
This was one of those practical,
Made all the models, didn't they? Blow them up. That's why it looks so good.
Yep. I know. I miss that. I know that Chris Nolan uses a lot of practical effects.
And that's what I love so much about his stuff.
Real, it feels real. But this is just amazing. I think all the performances in there. You've got Jeff fucking Goldblum in this movie. You've got Will Smith in this movie. You've even got Harry Connick Jr. in this movie. Judd Hirsch.
I forgot he was in it. I've not seen it for a while.
The cast is absolutely incredible. David. Oh crap. There's so many good actors in this, and even the script is amazing. The way it unfolds, incredible. It was just more of a kid thing, but seeing this in the cinema was huge. Probably part of the reason that I wanted to move to New York, and not to be glib, but I kind of always thought that I'd be in this city when the world ended. Do you know what I mean? And I've kind of been living that like a post-apocalyptic, end of days scenario here for the last few months, like a lot of people. So Independence Day, just a really a fun one on the list, but absolutely love it. The sequel was terrible. Don't watch that.
Yeah, don't watch that. But great film, first one. Well, I can't believe we didn't have any snaps.
0 snaps.
That's amazing.
And that's why we do what we do so well.
I promise we didn't talk to each other about this before. That's good.
I think we'll try and do more of these lists and let us know what you think. You feel free to reach out to us, DM us on social media and let us know if we screwed up, if we missed anything. We'd be happy to listen to your feedback. So that's it. On next week's podcast, we'll be bringing you more of the same with news, reviews, and hopefully an interview and all of the regular movie-related fun. But before we go, please follow our Facebook and Instagram accounts at @MovieMouth Podcast and hit subscribe or give us a nice 5-star review on your podcast player of choice. We look forward to sliding into your ear canals and staying there until she canna take no more, Captain. Philip.
Yes.
Salutations.
Salutations to you, my old chum.
I'll be seeing you.
Bye then.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.